She said, "You're a pathetic loser," then left me for my boss the very next day. But today, I own his company, every share, every desk, even his parking spot. And her, she now cleans my office floors for minimum wage. The pen felt heavy in my hand. It was a Mont Blanc I'd bought myself for this exact moment, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Below my signature was a line, and that line was the finish line for 5 years of sleepless nights, sacrificed weekends, and a single, burning obsession that changed my entire life. The lawyer across the polished mahogany table, a guy with a face like a block of granite, slid the portfolio over to me. It was done. Innovate Dynamics, the company that chewed me up and spat me out, was mine. She called me a loser as she walked out the door with my boss. What she didn't get was that in that moment, she wasn't just ending our relationship. She was launching my career. Fast forward 5 years, and I've just signed the papers that make me the new owner of the company where he is now, officially my employee. So, how does a man go from being called a failure in his own apartment to owning the whole building? It's a hell of a story, and it started on the worst day of my life. Before we get into exactly how it all went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss the fallout from this. Trust me, the acquisition is just the beginning. 5 years ago, my life was simple, predictable, even. I was Mark, a mid-level project manager at Innovate Dynamics, a so-called rising star in digital marketing. At least, that's what they told me. I wasn't setting the world on fire. Not yet, but I was good at my job. I was loyal, I worked hard, and I figured that was the path. My world pretty much revolved around 2 things, my career and Sarah. Sarah, we'd been together 3 years. We had an apartment filled with mismatched furniture and inside jokes. In my head, this was it. I was already looking at rings. I had the whole thing mapped out. Get the promotion I knew was coming, put a down payment on a house, start a future. I loved her with that blind, unquestioning devotion you have when you think you've got all figured out. And then there was Richard Thorne, my boss, the senior VP of strategy. To me back then, Richard was everything I thought I should want to be. Charismatic, sharp, and ruthless in a way that corporate life seems to reward. The guy wore tailored suits that cost more than my rent and spoke with a slick confidence that charmed clients and terrified everyone else. He took me under his wing when I started, and I was naive enough to think it was mentorship. It was just opportunism. He'd praise my ideas in private, then pass them off as his own in the boardroom. I told myself that's just how the game is played. I was paying my dues, but the ground under my simple life was starting to crack. Sarah was changing. The way she looked at me started to feel different. It was laced with something I couldn't quite name. It felt like disappointment. Our conversations got strained. She started talking about Richard. A lot. "Richard closed the Henderson account today," she'd say. "His commission is probably more than you make in 6 months." Or, "Richard's taking the whole executive team to Vegas this weekend. Must be nice." Every time she mentioned his name, it was a comparison, a little jab. I was the reliable family sedan. Richard was the brand new sports car. I tried to talk to her about it, to tell her I was on a path, that we had a plan. But it was like she'd already stopped listening. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. A miserable, gray drizzle that perfectly matched the mood inside our apartment. I came home early, excited to tell her I was the lead on the new Sterling project. This was a huge deal for me. It was the promotion I've been waiting for, all but guaranteed. She barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, Mark," she said, her voice completely flat. "Nice? Sarah, this is huge. This is what we've been waiting for." She finally looked at me, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't disappointment anymore. It was contempt. "Is it, Mark? Is it really huge? Or is it just another tiny step on your sad little ladder to middle management? Richard has his own portfolio. He makes real moves. You're just playing in a sandbox." Every word was a perfectly aimed dart. "What is this really about, Sarah? What's wrong with my job? With our life?" She shot up from the couch, her phone clattering on the coffee table. Her face was twisted in a way I'd never seen. "What's wrong is I'm wasting my life waiting for you to become something you'll never be. I'm tired of mediocrity. I'm tired of watching you get pats on the back while real men are out there building empires." And then she dropped the words that would echo in my head for the next 5 years. The words that became the foundation for everything I did next. She screamed it, her voice cracking. "You're a loser, Mark. A pathetic, ambitious loser. And I'm done. I can't be with a man who is going nowhere." The silence that followed was deafening. All I could hear was the rain tapping against the window. I couldn't speak. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. A loser. The word just hung there, vibrating with pure venom. That should have been the worst of it. It wasn't. That night, I slept on the couch. Well, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind a hurricane of hurt and confusion. Around 2 a.m., her phone, still on the table, buzzed. Then it buzzed again. I picked it up without thinking. The screen lit up with a string of notifications. From Richard. My blood ran cold. My hand started to shake as I unlocked it. Of course, I knew her password. We had that kind of trust. Or so I thought. The messages were right there. An entire history of my personal nightmare. Richard, can't stop thinking about this afternoon. You were incredible. Sarah, get out of my head. I feel so guilty, but I don't want this to stop. Richard, he'll never know. The guy walks around in a fog, too busy managing his little projects. Sarah, I'm going to end it tonight. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending. Richard, good. See you tomorrow. My place. We'll celebrate your freedom. And then, the one that shattered me. A message from just an hour before, sent while I was lying 10 feet away. Sarah, I did it. I told him. He just looked so pathetic. Richard, that's my girl. Don't worry. You're with a winner now. I dropped the phone like it was on fire. I stumbled to the bathroom and was sick until there was nothing left but dry, hacking sobs. It wasn't just a breakup. It was a conspiracy. My girlfriend and my boss. The two people who knew my biggest hopes and my deepest fears. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd laughed at me while doing it. I was just a project to be managed, a fool in a fog, a loser. I walked back into the living room and held up the phone. I didn't yell. My voice was a dead, hollow thing. A winner, I said. That's what he called himself. She didn't deny it. Didn't even apologize. Just a cold, hard stare. She walked into the bedroom and started throwing her things in a suitcase. As she rolled it past me to the front door, she paused. He's right, she said, her voice completely flat. He is a winner, and you're still a loser. Then she walked out into the rain and was gone, leaving me in the ruins of my life. In that moment, standing in the silence of my suddenly empty apartment, I felt a despair so deep it felt bottomless. I lost my girlfriend, my future, and my dignity all in one night. I was at rock bottom, but as I'd soon learn, rock bottom is the most solid foundation you can build on. The days that followed were a special kind of hell. You have to imagine walking into an office every day to face the two people who just systematically destroyed your life. Sarah would look away with this performance of guilt, but Richard was worse. He was smug. He'd strut past my desk with a self-satisfied smirk, sometimes clapping me on the shoulder and asking if I was holding up okay. It was a pure power play, a daily reminder that he'd won. He'd taken everything, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. The office became a torture chamber. I could hear the whispers in the hallways. I could feel the pitying looks from coworkers. My work naturally fell apart. The Sterling project, the big break that was supposed to make my career, was now just a source of constant dread. Richard was in every meeting, publicly questioning my decisions, subtly undermining me, painting me as incompetent. He was setting me up. It took him 3 months. 3 months of chipping away at my reputation, of documenting my poor performance. Then came a meeting with HR. The words were cold and corporate. Restructuring. Redundancies. Not a good fit. I didn't even fight it. I just sat there, numb, as Richard, my boss, my mentor, my girlfriend's new man, fired me. He even had the gall to shake my hand at the end. I wish you the best, Mark. I really do, he said with that predatory smile. I walked out of that building with my life in a cardboard box. Standing on the sidewalk, watching the city move on without me, I felt completely erased. And that's when it happened. The despair didn't just go away. It crystallized. It compressed under all that humiliation and grief and became something else. Something hard, sharp, and cold. It became a purpose. Revenge wasn't some lightning bolt idea. It was a slow burn. It started as a fantasy. What if I could make them feel a fraction of this? Then it became a question. But how? And finally, it became a plan. A meticulous, all-consuming plan. They thought I was a loser going nowhere. Fine. I would go somewhere they could never even imagine, and then I would come back. I sold my car, broke the lease on the apartment, and moved into a tiny shoebox room in a different city. I got a dead-end data entry job that paid the bills and required zero brain power, because my brain was busy. For the first year, I did nothing but study. I didn't go out. I didn't date. I lived like a monk whose only Bible was the Financial Times. I devoured books on corporate finance, market analysis, and, most importantly, mergers and acquisitions. I was learning the language of the Richards of the world. Not just how to build an empire, but how to take one. My first move was small. My research showed a huge weakness in Innovate Dynamics model. They were a big ship chasing only the biggest clients, the whales. They completely ignored the smaller, nimbler tech startups that needed specialized marketing and fast. That was my opening. I drained my savings and started my own company. It wasn't glamorous. I called it Apex Strategy, a deliberately boring and corporate name. The world headquarters was the corner of my tiny room. I was the CEO, the marketer, the accountant, and the janitor. I lived on coffee and instant noodles, working 18-hour days. Every single time I wanted to give up, I'd look at a piece of paper I had taped to the wall. It just had her words on it. "You're a loser." That was my fuel. Slowly, painfully, it started to work. I landed one client, then another. My advantage was that I was everything Innovate Dynamics wasn't. I was fast, I was hungry, and I was cheaper. And I delivered better results because my entire existence depended on it. After a year and a half, I had enough cash flow to hire my first employee, a brilliant analyst named Chloe, who'd also been chewed up and spat out by a corporate giant. She saw the fire in my eyes and came aboard for a fraction of what she was worth. We grew. We moved from my room to a small, windowless office, then to a bigger office that actually had a window. I started building a team, but I was picky. I looked for the cast-offs, the underestimated, people who, like me, had a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. We were a team of pirates, raiding the coast that the big naval ships like Innovate Dynamics thought were beneath them. All the while, I was watching Innovate. I had Google alerts set for the company and for Richard Thorne. I read their quarterly reports. I tracked every client they won, and more importantly, every client they lost. And I could see the rot Richard was creating. He was all about flash, about landing big, sexy accounts that got his picture in trade magazines. But he was terrible at keeping them. He neglected the boring, daily work of client retention. His staff turnover was insane because he managed through fear. He was burning through the company's resources for his own glory. Meanwhile, Apex Strategy was getting stronger. We started landing bigger clients. Sometimes, we were even pitching against Innovate Dynamics. I never went to those meetings myself. I sent my top people. Richard never had a clue. To him, Apex was just another small fry competitor. I was a ghost. The turning point came in year 4. Innovate Dynamics lost the Sterling project, the very project I'd been fired from. The client was fed up. We put in a bid, and we won. That contract changed everything. The revenue let us scale up aggressively. It gave us legitimacy. It put us on a map. It was also the first real nail in Richard's coffin, and he didn't even know I was the one holding the hammer. Now it was time for the final phase. My revenge was never just about building a bigger company. That was too simple. It had to be poetic. I had to own the very thing he used to destroy me. I started a new, anonymous holding company. Through it, I began strategically buying up Innovate Dynamics debt. Richard's short-sighted spending had left them vulnerable. I also started quietly buying their stock on the open market. It was a slow, expensive process that drained a lot of Apex's profits. My investors thought I was crazy, but I showed them my analysis. I showed them the rot I knew was inside that company. I predicted they were headed for a major downturn. And late in year 5, I was proven right. After losing 2 more massive clients, both poached by my team at Apex, their stock price cratered. They were hemorrhaging money. The board was panicking. That's when I made my move. Through my holding company, I launched a hostile takeover bid. I offered to buy a controlling stake at a price just above its battered value. It was a lifeline they couldn't refuse. The board, desperate to stop the bleeding, accepted. There were weeks of legal paperwork and due diligence. The whole time, my name was buried under layers of corporate law. The board of Innovate Dynamics just knew they were being saved by a private investment firm. They had no idea the firm was just one man with a 5-year-old grudge. And that brings us back to today, to this boardroom with this pen. I signed the last page. The lawyer slid the portfolio over. I opened it and looked at the new org chart for Innovate Dynamics. At the very top, CEO Mark, and a few levels down, still clinging to his title, was Senior VP of Strategy Richard Thorne, and right under him, a senior account manager named Sarah. I closed the portfolio, stood up, and walked to the window overlooking the city. 5 years ago, I was down on that sidewalk with a cardboard box. Now, I own the skyscraper. The weapon was forged. It was time to use it. My first act as CEO was to schedule a company-wide virtual town hall for 3 p.m. the next day. The email invitation was vague, sent from the office of the CEO. It mentioned a new chapter, a bold new vision, and a chance to meet the new leadership. The whole company was buzzing. For Richard and Sarah, it must have been a day of cautious relief. Their company was saved. Their jobs were secure. They probably thought this was just a new boss at the top. They had no idea the new boss was me. I spent the next 24 hours in a state of calm, focused readiness. My Apex team was in the background, integrating systems, going through personnel files, getting ready for the switch. But this next part, this was something I had to do alone. At 2:59 p.m., I sat in my new office, Richard's old office, a victory that tasted better than any champagne, and joined the video call. I kept my camera and mic off. The screen was a grid of hundreds of anxious, curious faces. I found them almost immediately. Richard, in his home office, looking proud, like a man ready to be introduced as the hero who held it all together. And Sarah, in her little box, looking nervous but excited, probably dreaming about the opportunities under a new regime. At exactly 3 p.m., the head of HR started talking. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, Innovate Dynamics has been acquired. This is a thrilling moment for us, a chance for renewal and growth. It is now my great honor to introduce you to the man leading us into this new future, our new CEO. She paused for effect. Please welcome. That was my cue. I unmuted my mic and turned on my camera. Silence. For a full second, there was just my face looking calmly into the camera on hundreds of screens. Then the chat exploded. Is that Mark? No way. I ignored it. I was only watching two little squares on that grid. Sarah's face went through a brutal series of emotions. Confusion. A flicker of recognition. Then the blood drained from her face in total, abject shock. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide with horror. She looked like she'd just seen a ghost. Richard's reaction was slower, but deeper. His smug smile didn't just fade, it was wiped clean off his face. His jaw went slack, his eyes narrowed, and his head tilted. Disbelief. Then the disbelief curdled into pure, unfiltered rage. I could almost see the gears grinding in his head as he tried to process the sheer audacity of what he was seeing. I let the silence hang for a few more seconds. I savored it. Then I spoke, my voice perfectly even. Hello, everyone, I said. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark. And yes, for those of you who do, I'm that Mark. As of yesterday, I am the new owner and CEO of Innovate Dynamics. I didn't mention them. Not yet. I spent 10 minutes laying out my vision. I talked about stability, about valuing talent, about ending the culture of fear. I talked about rewarding the people who do the actual work. With every word about integrity and respect, I was twisting the knife. I was describing everything Richard wasn't. I was dismantling his entire legacy in front of the company he thought he ran. I ended the town hall by announcing individual meetings with senior leadership. I smiled into the camera. The future is bright. Let's get to work. Then I clicked end meeting. My first meeting was at 4 p.m. attendees, Richard, Thorne, and Sarah. I had them come to my office. Richard stormed in first, his face a mask of thunder. Sarah trailed behind him, pale and terrified, staring at the floor. What the hell is this, Mark? Richard snarled, not even bothering to sit. What kind of game is this? I leaned back in my new leather chair and pointed to the seats in front of my desk. It's not a game, Richard. It's business. Please sit down. He stood there, practically vibrating with rage. I'm not sitting down. You think you could just waltz in here? I built this place. No, I said, my voice dropping to an icy calm. You didn't build it. You hollowed it out. I have the numbers. A 40% staff turnover in your department. Client satisfaction scores down 60% since you took over. You lost the Sterling account, the Henderson account, the Maritime portfolio. You bled this company dry to fuel your ego. You didn't build a thing. You were a parasite. I slid a thick file across the desk. This is your performance review. It details every bad decision, every lost client, and every complaint filed against you. You're not the builder, Richard. You're the reason this company was on sale in the first place. He was speechless. The rage was gone, replaced by sputtering confusion. He was so convinced of his own genius, He'd never imagined he could be seen as anything else. So, no, this is not a game, I said. This is a termination. Your employment is over, effective immediately. Security is outside. They'll escort you out. He finally found his voice, a strangled whisper. You can't do this. I can, I said, standing up. I just did. Goodbye, Richard. He stared at me, his world collapsing behind his eyes. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. Now it was just me and Sarah. She was still standing there, wringing her hands. Sit down, Sarah, I said, my voice softer. She sank into the chair, looking small. She finally met my eyes, and they were wet with tears. Mark, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said, sitting back down. The power reversal was so total, it felt surreal. I'm so sorry, Mark, she whispered. What I did, it was awful. I was stupid. You were right. I cut in. She looked confused. What? You were right. About me. I clarified. 5 years ago, the man you left? He was a loser. He was weak and naive. He was happy with mediocrity. He was going nowhere. You saw it. You were just brutally honest about it. I leaned forward. So, in a twisted way, I have you to thank. Your words, Richard's betrayal, that was the fuel. It was the pressure I needed to become someone else. You screamed, "You're a loser," at me, and in doing so, you created your own worst nightmare, a man with nothing left to lose. She was crying openly now, quiet, desperate sobs. Please, Mark, don't fire me. This job is all I have. Richard, he left me months ago, for his assistant. I have nothing. The irony was so thick, I could almost taste it. This woman who had shattered my world was now begging me for a job. The rage I'd carried for 5 years was gone, burned out, leaving just a cold, empty space. I didn't hate her anymore. I just felt nothing. I'm not going to fire you, Sarah, I said. Relief washed over her face. Oh, thank you, Mark. I'll work so hard. I'll prove. Don't thank me, I said, my voice flat. You're going to keep your job. You'll keep your salary. You will come into this office every single day, and you will watch me succeed. You will watch me turn the company you and your lover almost destroyed into the empire you always wanted to be a part of. You'll write reports on my success. You'll sit in meetings where I'm praised. You will have a front row seat to everything you told me I could never be. Her face fell. She got it now. This wasn't mercy. This was the real punishment. A gilded cage. A daily, soul-crushing reminder of what she threw away. I stood up, signaling the meeting was over. She looked up at me, her face a wreck of tears and dawning horror. Her fate was sealed. She would have to live with the consequences every day under my roof. My company, my rules. As she walked out the door, a broken shell of the woman she used to be, I felt a quiet sense of closure. The revenge was complete. Richard was gone. Sarah was trapped. I had won, or so I thought. So that's the story of how the loser became the boss. Richard is basically unemployable. Word travels fast in our industry, and the story of his epic failure, capped off by being fired by me, made him toxic. Sarah is still here, a ghost in the machine. She does her job, keeps her head down, and never makes eye contact. They both beg for things now. He begs for references I'll never give. She begs for a transfer to another department, a request I will always deny. But seeing her every day, I've started to think, firing Richard was justice. Keeping Sarah here is poetic, but it feels unfinished, like there's one move left to make. The pain was personal, so maybe the final resolution should be too. She thinks the worst is over. She has no idea I'm just getting started. What do you think that final move should be? Drop your most creative ideas in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Because the best revenge is making them watch you live the life they said you never could.